I finally got around to watching Adolescence, and one, I knew what the topic of discussion would be when it came to this limited series, but I didn't realize how confronting and in your face and very needed this storyline was. What made it worse is that I started watching this during a cosplay convention weekend, which is not the mindset I should be going through when watching something like this. And as someone who is the older sister to a 16-year-old boy, this hit harder than it should have been, which works in its favor, but also like in that opening sequence, my first thought was, what if this was my brother? In that opening sequence of the first episode, seeing Jamie get arrested and the family going, he's done nothing wrong, what are you doing, go away. I was sitting there going, this could be my brother. This could be something that my family could go through. And then as the storylines continued, seeing the way that the Miller family reacted, seeing the way that the community reacted, it's very confronting, and I understand the purpose of this. I understand the purpose that we need to encourage topics of conversation of teenage murder, topics of conversation of he came from a good home, topics of conversation of unfortunately the perpetrators are always going to be remembered more than the victims. We need to have conversations where we try to find some understandings. And I liked this last episode, and this last episode had me so... But the last episode with the Miller family, the dad, the wife, and the daughter, of them just trying to celebrate the father's birthday and the dramatics of it all playing out. Seeing that the fact that they were very adamant that he came from a good home, the parents blaming themselves, thinking that they did something wrong. Not every child like Jamie comes from a bad home. A lot of children like Jamie come from a good home, a loving home, a home where the parents tried their fucking hardest to be what their child needed. But it is hard because there is family influence. But then once your child leaves your visual peripheral and your household, there is outside pressures. There is pressures from your friends, from girls, from the internet, from this, from that. There's only so much control you can have over your loved ones. And I know everyone's talked about the cinematography of this, how it's predominantly a one-shot filmed episode, which is really great because, again, it works in its favor. You get to see key characters and their reactions, and it allows you to follow the right moments and hits the right beats, and the storytelling marries into the cinematography. And it's great in that sense, but I of course I've got nothing negative to say about it, and it felt very stage play, which is what you want with a storyline. They could have taken the easy route and been like another crime drama, but it took this route and went, we're going to shake it up a little bit. We're going to give you different perspectives. We're going to give you reasons, you know. The school fight, and I think it was episode 3, I think it was episode 3 where the cops were at the school and the kids were getting into fights and being little shits. Again, the pressures from school. That is, even in Australia, we have similar schools to those. You know, I went through the public school system. My siblings are in the public school system. Schooling is the same regardless of where you go. Teachers are underpaid, students are little shits. You keep going with that demographic and that narrative because it's very true. There is only so much, again, that the adults can do towards children. I'm not saying that the adults need to murder these kids, but like the way that they are influenced, how the parents try to pull the reins while the teachers are like, we can't do anything. You've got the kids who are causing school fights and won't tell you why, and they just go, oh, it's so messy, it's nothing, we're just playing. I mean, I was friends with summer boys who were similar to Jamie. Sure, they didn't hate the concept of women. They loved women, and I heard their stories. But again, you can see that narrative of their clogs ticking. This, I think this hits harder if you have young boys in your household. I think this hits harder if you are a parent. I think this hits harder when you try to find some understandings of this storyline. I mean, sure, everybody can be affected, whether you have a son or a brother or something. It doesn't matter whether you don't, but you know you can be affected by this storyline. It's a shock to the community. It's a topic that is ever evolving. It's a topic that has been around but has only been mainstream in the recent generation, and the narrative where women are less than, you know, that's always been around. That topic of conversation has been around since the dawn of humanity, but it is getting louder with each generation, getting louder with each evolution of technology, and it's so hard to maintain and control because you know that mindset is so wrong, but those voices are so loud. As a woman myself, the day-to-day life is not always puppy dogs and rainbows like people believe. And the fact that there's an 80-20, that narrative needs to be erased. You know, women aren't after select men, but we are careful on how we choose our men. We are careful on who we hang around with. I've lost a lot of male friends because they've acted similar to Jamie. I've stopped being around male friends because they have certain narratives that just make me feel unsafe being around. And these are grown men who are now 30 years old, who are now in their late 20s. You know, this conversation sticks around and it's disgusting. So, Adolescence is hard to sit through. It's 4 episodes long. I heard that it got announced for approval of a second season, which I don't want. I just want it to be done as is because it's a lot more confronting and hitting, unless they can pick a different character to follow a similar route to this. But I think once you've done one, you don't need to keep going back to it. But it is so beautifully done. The cast are phenomenal, playing each role perfect to a T. The Miller family, the way that cast interacts with each other made me feel as if I was watching people who were family. They didn't feel like actors being a family. They felt like a family. They felt like they had the chemistry that oozed what they needed to tell in this storyline. Adolescence. Brilliant. Confronting, but well worth the watch.